Fjorm is finally out and she is ready to take her vengeance. I'm actually curious where to take the story because King Surtur seems pretty cruel and dark, at least for Fire Emblem standards. Anyways, this video is about Fjorm, the Princess of Ice, and more specifically if her unique special skill, Ice Mirror, is worth using. If you don't know who Fjorm is, then you can find out by doing the Book 2 story maps, and at the end of Chapter 1, you will receive a free 5-star copy of Fjorm. She can also be summoned, but only during some legendary summoning events, which are probably not going to become too common. The next event is planned for the end of December. If you aren't familiar with Ice Mirror, when it procs, it reduces ranged enemy attacks by 30%. It will then boost Fjorm's next attack equal to the amount of damage reduced. So like a mirror, it will reflect back some damage to the enemy. This damage boost takes into account any damage that was also reduced by other skills Fjorm has. For instance, her Shield Pulse B skill reduces damage by a flat 5 when Ice Mirror procs. So the ideal use case for Ice Mirror includes tanking a ranged attack and then proceeding to one-hit KO the enemy using the reflected damage boost. Fjorm's entire kit reinforces this. Attack/defense bond grants her a good amount of stats, and you ideally want to set her up next to an ally during the enemy phase. Shield Pulse ensures Ice Mirror is ready from turn 1, and her legendary weapon Lapter has distant counter built in. This is what I feel like the skill wants to do, and Fjorm is supposed to be a pretty defensive character that can retaliate against ranged attackers pretty well. However, from using her in combat, I think there are some glaring weaknesses with Ice Mirror. In a battle scenario, Ice Mirror either works and does its job pretty well, or it feels really bad. If you can't kill the enemy with the reflected damage, Fjorm is left open to just getting doubled, and her speed is not exactly above average. Another thing is that Ice Mirror is sort of counterintuitive with Fjorm's stats. Her defense is a decent 30 and her res is a fantastic 34. If Fjorm takes little damage, then Ice Mirror's damage reduction is useless and she will get almost no damage boost. You would think giving Fjorm skills like distant defense to boost her stats even more would be ideal, but having defensive stats that are too high start to diminish Ice Mirror's effectiveness. A very interesting idea is to actually use Life and Death as her A skill. It gets a very nice attack and speed boost, and it lowers her defense and resistance so that Ice Mirror actually gets more damage to boost off of. Just going for the ideal use case of baiting in a mage and killing them in one hit, I think Life and Death could be a viable option. Another thing about Ice Mirror is that it sort of feels clunky to use after its initial proc. Unless Fjorm or the enemy doubles in combat, Ice Mirror won't be charged again. Fjorm is going to have to fight again to have it back up. This means that Ice Mirror is rarely, if ever, is going to be ready to tackle 2 enemies during the enemy phase. So my verdict is that I believe Ice Mirror does have its uses. I can see Fjorm being able to use it to bait in super stat boosted enemies that you can find in Grand Hero battles or other special maps. Even if Fjorm gets dangerously low, as long as she can take out the enemy attacker, then I think that's pretty good. So you can either use her base kit of Ice Mirror and Shield Pulse, or you can swap it out if you want to run Fjorm differently. She does need some help in the attack and speed department, but her defense and resistance are already pretty darn solid. So interestingly, Fjorm without Ice Mirror can run a very similar setup to my minus attack and plus speed Ephraim who uses distant counter. Fjorm doesn't need distant counter thanks to Lapter, so she can run an A skill that greatly helps her attack or speed. Quick Riposte is fantastic as an enemy phase tool since it will allow Fjorm to always attack twice despite her speed. You can use whatever special you want, like Iceberg or Glacies, to take advantage of her high res. I like Moonbow since it will always proc with the Quick Riposte second hit. Fjorm can use a variety of sacred skills, and if you aren't going to use an Ice Mirror build, then Close Defense and Distant Defense are actually very good choices to boost Fjorm's already impressive defense. Overall, Fjorm can run a lot of different setups, and she has a distant counter lance, which is always a plus. I have a couple fun facts about Fjorm that has been discovered since her release. Ice Mirror's damage reduction does stack multiplicatively with Deflect Missile and Magic. This only applies if both activate at the same time, and that's pretty hard to set up reliably. If you didn't know, the Blessing stat boost that Fjorm grants can stack if you use multiple copies on the same team. This means an ally with Water Blessing can get a ton of HP and speed if you wanted. I actually think this mechanic can be abused, but it's gonna really depend on if the legendary hero used is good enough to warrant having 2 or 3 on the same team. I don't think multiple Fjorms is very good, but if someone on the same tier as Reinhardt or Brave Lyn was a legendary hero, then I'm for sure you could definitely afford to run the same hero and grant an ally with super stat boost. To go along with this interaction, the Blessing effect does carry over into arena defense teams. I ran into a Lucas who had Water Blessing and had a Fjorm on his team. He was indeed getting the plus 3 HP and speed from the Blessing. So unlike ally support and summoner support, you can plan your defense teams around these stat boosts. If you give an ally a Blessing, then they will receive the same after image type effect Fjorm has on her front flip. This effect only triggers on attacking specials however. Here's my Ephraim who I gave my Blessing to.
Alright, let's fight!
Fjorm also only triggers her cool flip when she is getting the killing blow. I had no idea till I saw a random comment, but King Surtur also has a special animation for killing blows and it looks pretty crazy. I'll let you guys see that one for yourself. That's all I had for this video and I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about Ice Mirror and if you're still using it on Fjorm. I don't think it's a bad skill and we definitely need more defensive specials like it in the game. My hopes for the future is that more characters will get their own special animations like Fjorm. It doesn't seem like they are too afraid to do super crazy unrealistic attacks, and hopefully we can get stuff like Ike's Aetherite animation or literally any of the crazy critical hit animations from the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblems. I'll see you guys in the next Fire Emblem Heroes guide.